We're here on a motion to enlarge visitation filed by the intervenor, Ms. Rodriguez. Mr. Albee is with us for the department. Ms. Fouts is with us here appearing for placement. Ms. Fouts, who do you have with you as far as your clients?
I have Misty O'Quinn and Brittany O'Quinn with me, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Then we have Mr. Ingram with us representing the child. Mr. Jackson is with us representing the mother, Miss Morrow. Mr. Jackson, I have you on here twice. Is that your client?
Miss Morrow, I'm not sure if you can hear me, wave your hand.
Yeah, that's your client, correct?
Client.
Okay, all right,
yes,
thank you. It's listed under your name.
Oh, okay.
Okay, then we have Mr. Hamker representing the intervenor. I think I've said that, Ms. Rodriguez. And Mr. Hill represents the father, Mr. O'Quinn. Mr. Hill, were you expecting your client? I don't see him.
No, sir. I spoke with him yesterday and then received a text message from him this morning. He won't be able to attend.
Okay, all right. Okay, I think that accounts for all the parties. I have Paula Mears and Chase Harrison in the waiting room. Do we need either of those in?
Paula Mears is the St. Francis Ministries permanency specialist, Your Honor, and I would ask that she be allowed in as representative.
All right. Okay.
Your Honor, I believe I've subpoenaed not only Miss Mears but also Chase Miller. Is he here?
I have a Chase Harrison.
That might be him. Chase Harrison. I thought he was Miller.
All right, Mr. Hamker, this was your motion, so you may proceed.
Judge, before we begin, I just want to make sure that I'm clear. Ms. Fouts is here with the placement. Is she allowed to participate in this hearing?
I believe so. In her response, she cited the statute, which I've looked at. It says that a placement is entitled to 10 days notice of a hearing. They're allowed to appear and to present evidence.
Thank you. I just make sure that I was clear, Your Honor. So,
yeah, she's not a party. I think we talked about this last time. She is not a party to the suit, but she does. Her clients do have the right to appear as placement and offer evidence if they choose to do so.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Hamker, you're first.
Your Honor, if I may, with respect to Mr. Albee's comment, I agree with your observation of that rule. It's my position that they are not allowed to question witnesses, but they can present evidence.
That's not my understanding.
Okay, I'm just going to make my objection before we start, so as not to mess things up, as with respect to their ability to cross-examination witnesses.
Well, let me just. Are you saying cross-examine or to present?
No, they can present evidence, but I don't believe they're allowed to cross-examine witnesses.
Ms. Fast, do you have a response to that? I'm looking at the statute as we speak.
I don't believe the statute prevents me from cross-examining witnesses, Your Honor. I don't know that it directly addresses it either.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm just going to go by what I can actually see in the statute. Obviously, I haven't done any research on it, but I'm going to allow you to present evidence, but not cross-examine witnesses. Okay. Mr. Hamker, your first witness.
Your Honor, I would call Paula Mears.
Mr. Hamker.
Miss Mears, I'll try to be brief with you because I know you have lots of things to do on Fridays. The last time we had a hearing, I believe, I had asked you reasons why you thought that Miss Veronica Rodriguez should continue to have supervised visitation and only 2 hours a week. And your response was that you do not believe she should have unsupervised visits because, one, her husband is a convicted felon. Two, that she allowed the parents, the biological parents, to see the children when she had possession of the grandbaby as placement when she wasn't supposed to. And three, that she violated the supervised visitation rules by providing Maria Morrow with photographs of her baby.
Judge, I'm going to object to the question as it's a summary of the testimony of Miss Mears, and it doesn't recite the facts as actually testified to Ms. Mears, I would ask the court to only consider the actual testimony that Ms. Mears gave on May 6th.
Well, why don't we do this, Mr. Hamker? You've cited 3 different things so far. Why don't you take them one at a time and ask her if that's still her opinion?
Okay. Is it still your opinion that Ms. Rodriguez should not be allowed to see her grandchild in an unsupervised capacity or in large time because her husband is a felon? Yes or no?
In an unsupervised capacity, yes. In a extended time, I have no objections to that.
With respect to your comments that you believe that she allowed the parents to see the baby without proper, under proper authority, do you still believe that's one of your reasons?
Yes, I do believe that she allowed the parents to see the child.
Okay. Do you know what day that was or what days that were?
No, I cannot recite specific dates.
Did you see her do that?
No, I did not.
Do you know anybody that saw her do that?
No, I do not.
Where did you come upon this knowledge?
From reading the investigation and the family-based safety case.
So you have no personal knowledge of what you read to be true?
This is correct.
Do you know if the people that entered this information that you read, if they had any personal knowledge that that was true or not?
I cannot answer that.
Okay. Now, with respect to the last point that you made, that Veronica Rodriguez violated the supervised visitation rules regarding allowing photographs to be sent to her daughter.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. I think that the testimony is that she's admitted that she didn't violate any specific rules, but she violated the no contact provisions by this court. So his question is incorrect as to the facts presented.
Well, let's just, I think we're splitting hairs here. Mr. Hamker, you can ask her about the photos. Does she think that that violated anything?
Well, let me be even more specific. Am I correct that St. Francis encourages the use of a phone by taking pictures in the supervised visitation context, correct?
I mean, it's allowed.
In fact, that's what it says on number 16 on page 2. In fact, the word can is even highlighted and capitalized, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that's been, Your Honor, I introduced that for the court as one of the exhibits. And there, you would agree with me that there is not one sentence in those 21 paragraphs of rules that addresses or prohibits photographs from being sent once they're taken on a phone.
Yes.
All right. So those are the only 3 things. Do you have any other reasons?
Just that, no other reasons.
And if you would, you made a comment at the very beginning of your testimony that I take it that in a, and please explain it to me, you said you have no problems with Miss Rodriguez with having an enlarged time of visitation?
Correct.
And what parameters would you say in that? Well, how much more time?
Well, just within reason, we're talking about an 11-month-old child. So,
Well, would that be an additional 2 hours or 3 hours over a week period?
I would think that over a week period.
Yeah, during.
Possibly. I mean, not at a time. I mean, he's an 11-month-old child. I mean, we need to remember that. And and not exhaust this child.
So she has 2 hours now. Do you think 4 hours would be unreasonable?
It depends on the time.
Yeah, I mean, if it's broken up.
If it's broken up, yes, that is, I believe, reasonable.
Your Honor, I pass the witness.
Okay, Mr. Jackson,
I have no questions.
Mr. Hill.
So, ma'am, I apologize, but I'm a little unclear as to what your opinion is. So, is your opinion that increased visitation is okay or not okay? I think you're saying it's okay, right?
Well, I do believe that increased visitation is okay as long as we remember that we're talking about an 11-month-old child and that it needs to be broken up, and 4 hours at a time is kind of excessive, and we need to remember the well-being of this child and not exhaust him.
Okay, thank you. So my next question then is, is your recommendation that visitation be supervised or unsupervised?
Only supervised.
Only supervised. Okay, very good. Thank you, ma'am.
Any other questions, Mr. Hill?
Oh, sorry, Judge. No.
Okay, Mr. Ingram.
No questions.
All right. Anyone else have further questions for Ms. Mears?
I do, Your Honor, if it please the court.
Uh-huh.
Ms. Mears, it's not only that Ms. Rodriguez's spouse has felony convictions, it's the type of felony convictions that you have concerns with. Is that right?
That is correct.
Does it seem like those convictions have drug abuse backgrounds?
This is correct.
In addition, you rely on the investigations, reports, and the documents put into the court file to make decisions concerning the child and the history of this case, correct?
Correct.
And your review of the file says that Ms. Rodriguez violated the Child Placement Safety Act or agreement that was made when the child was placed in her care in August of 2023.
This is
Your Honor, I
correct.
object that that question's based on hearsay.
Overrule. You can answer, Ms. Mears.
This is correct.
And you have to rely on that information in your file.
I do.
Thank you. And you're not complaining that Ms. Rodriguez took videos or photos when she was exercising her visits. You're complaining that she shared those with Ms. O'Quinn or with the child's mom when there was a no contact order put in place.
Correct.
So it's not the videos or the photographs of themselves that's the issue. It's the fact that she shared them with someone the court had ordered not to have contact with the child.
Correct.
Well, let me interrupt you there, Mr. Albee. The court did not order that. You're making an assumption.
Okay. Now, your testimony today is that you don't have any objections to increased visits, and we've already discussed an increase of 30 minutes per visit with Ms. Rodriguez.
This is correct.
And you really don't have any objections to that at all.
No.
Thank you, Ms. Mears. I'll pass it.
Anyone else?
I have a few more questions, Your Honor.
All right.
May I proceed?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Mears, do you have any idea how many years Ms. Rodriguez's husband served in prison?
No, I do not.
Do you know how many years do you think Mrs. Rodriguez's husband should be out of prison before he's allowed contact with an infant?
No.
So do you think that maybe in 20 years he might be able to see his wife's grandbaby?
Well, Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation. He's
Sustained.
not something that's
Sustained.
Well,
Sustained.
well, my question is just what would Mrs. Rodriguez's husband have to do to the point that you think that he would be safe to be around a child?
Well, my opinion on this doesn't really matter. I mean, it's the stance of the department right now.
That's a good enough answer, Mr. Hamker.
Okay. And who in your department are you referring to that makes that decision? You've been told that by? Who has told you that?
It's the department as a whole.
Well, the department doesn't have a heart or eyes or nose. There's people. Who has told you that?
Objection, Your Honor. That's not relevant to what our hearing is today.
Overrule. Ms. Mears, if you know, you may not know who makes those decisions.
I mean, we have staffed this this issue with my supervisor and my superiors, and it has come to this conclusion. And it is the department as a whole. This is our stance.
Who was in the staff meeting when that decision was made?
My supervisor, Stacy Brown.
Stacy who?
Brown.
And yourself?
It is true.
And who else?
No one else.
So just you and Miss Brown?
Correct.
Okay. And was there a record or recording made of this staffing?
No.
Were there any notes made of this staffing?
Objection, Your Honor. He's fishing in this discovery. He's asked for discovery. We're going to provide discovery to him.
Sustained.
How long did it last?
Objection. Again, the same answer. Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
With respect to the, I assume during staffing, one of the reasons why you decided to take the child away because it was alleged that Miss Rodriguez was using drugs, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. She was not a part of the reasons for the removal, and she was not in any staffing that would have been involved in there. So that would be speculation on her part.
Mr. Hamker, if I understand your question, you're asking about when the child was removed from your clients as placement?
Yes. Todd
Okay.
has opened the door and stated that this woman has relied upon all the documents that have been filed from the investigators and other people.
I follow you. I want to know if I understand your question. You're asking about when the child was removed.
Yes.
Excuse me. Can I finish?
Yes.
You're asking about when the child was removed from your client as placement. That's the basis of your question?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, then you can go ahead, Ms. Mears. You can answer that. If you remember what the question was.
I don't remember what the question was. I'm sorry.
That's fine. The child, one of the reasons the child was removed was because an allegation that my client may have been using drugs, correct?
From what I remember reading, there was a family team meeting. During the family team meeting, Austin O'Quinn, announced that Miss Rodriguez had been allowing unsupervised contact between Mr. O'Quinn, Miss Morrow, and the child. So that is when the child was put in a parent-child safety placement, taken out of Miss Rodriguez's care, placed in Misty O'Quinn's care, and remained there until it was determined the parents continued to relapse and a removal had to be done.
Did Mr. O'Quinn ever tell you that he had never been in Ms. Rodriguez's home since the baby was born?
No, Mr. O'Quinn has not told me that.
So you're not aware of the fact that he never went to visit the baby in Ms. Rodriguez's home?
Objection, Your Honor. She just answered that question.
Sustained. Asked and answered.
Is it possible that Mr. O'Quinn was not telling you the truth?
Objection, speculation, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Your Honor, I'm not at this point saying he didn't say that. I'm just saying, was it possible that he wasn't telling?
Oh, that's just another way around the.
Okay. Mrs. Mears, were you aware at the time you were visiting with him on the phone that he was high on drugs?
Objection, Your Honor. It would be speculation as to whether or not she could tell if he was high.
Overruled. Ms. Mears, could you tell if he was on
that.
drugs or not?
I'm not following the question, Mr. Hamker. I'm sorry.
Were you told prior to calling him? It's true that the department actually called Mr. O'Quinn when he made that statement. And the reason why the department called him was because the department was informed by other people in the meeting that he was on drugs.
Mr. Hampton, that is not a question at all. You're testifying. You know better than that.
Let me rephrase it shorter. Did anybody in the meeting prior to the phone call to Mr. O'Quinn tell you that he was using drugs on that day the phone call was made?
I was not in the meeting.
Okay. That solves that question. Yeah. So the team meeting, when you say Austin O'Quinn called, then that was what somebody else told you.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. I don't recall Miss Mears ever testifying about any phone call from Austin O'Quinn.
Your Honor, she just did.
You can answer that, Ms. Mears, if you know.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hamker. I'm lost.
Just a minute ago, you stated that Austin O'Quinn called and told you that he had been seeing the child in Veronica Rodriguez's home.
No,
Objection.
sir.
Is that true? Or he called?
That was not what was testified to, Mr. Hamker.
Well, can you correct me then about the phone call? Was it to you or someone else in the team meeting?
I didn't say anything about a phone call. I said that the record stated that there was a family team meeting. During the family team meeting, Mr. O'Quinn announced that Miss Rodriguez had been allowing unsupervised contact between the child and the parents. I do not know how that information was delivered. I was not part of that meeting. It was in the record. That's
a good enough answer, Ms. Mears.
Thank
You've
you.
answered that twice.
Okay.
Let's move on,
Thank
Mr. Hamker.
Since you were not in the meeting, you would defer to someone's testimony who was in the meeting, correct?
Correct. To the record.
I passed the witness, Your Honor.
Anyone else for Ms. Mears?
Just briefly, Your Honor.
Okay, very briefly, please.
Yes, sir. Ms. Mears, you had testified when you were answering Mr. Hamker's questions that your statement was that the parents continued to relapse. Do you remember saying that?
Yes.
Okay, and I want to make sure I'm clear on this. That's parents, plural, right? Mom and dad?
Correct.
Okay. And so the question I had for you is that you've got parents that are relapsing. We've got one parent that's making a statement that the grandmother is allowing access or contact with the child and these parents. Did you all look into investigating the truthfulness of those statements if you knew that they were using?
I cannot testify to that. I was not party to that.
Okay. Did you ever take it upon yourself to look into the truthfulness of that?
I relied on the record, sir.
Okay, pass the witness, Your Honor.
Anyone else? All right, Mr.
Your Honor,
Hampton,
Your Honor, I have two more questions and I'll be done with it.
go ahead.
Ms. Mears, you stated you were aware of the documents that had been filed in the case. Am I correct that Veronica Rodriguez was supposed to supervise all contact with Marina Morrow with the baby?
Correct.
And am I correct that in August of 23, Marina Morrow had unsupervised access to the child per order or of the department?
At one point in time, she was allowed that. Yes.
Okay, that'd be in August.
Correct.
Okay, pass the witness, Your Honor.
Anyone else? All right, Mr. Hampton, any other witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor, I would call Mr. Harrison. Mr. Harrison, you work for St. Francis?
Yes.
Okay. And with respect to this case, am I correct in that you have been supervising visitations by Ms. Rodriguez with the baby Jax?
Yes.
Would you agree with me that if you observed or saw anything that was not in the best interest of the child or dangerous to the child, you have made a report regarding that to your superior?
Yes.
Have you seen anything that met that you've made a report on?
No.
With respect to the child, there's been some comments made in paperwork that the baby cries when he's taken back and forth. I believe you do a lot of the transportation, correct?
Yes. At the beginning of the of starting visits, I did transport him to visit and from visit. He did have a hard time kind of being around me. Either it could be stranger danger or just getting used to me. And so we put a later on with the visits, placement started to come and pick him up after the visit.
Okay. And would you, as you stated, would you say that was probably a normal reaction by a young child with respect to those circumstances?
Yes.
Okay. Now that the grandmothers are doing more of the transfer, is it your opinion that the child is processing that better?
Transfer in definition. Or you mean like transporting him, or just when it picks him up?
Yeah, picking him up, dropping off, that type of thing.
Yeah, I think it's a great transition when placement does come and pick him up.
Okay. In other words, you would recommend all parties to work together in the best interest of the child.
Yes.
Okay. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Jackson?
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Hill?
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Ingram?
No questions.
All right, anything further, Ms. Harrison, from anyone? All right, can he be excused?
Your
I
Honor,
have-
I have some questions. I understand that I'm not allowed to cross-examine any witnesses. Could Mr. Harrison stick around so that I may ask him some questions on direct when it is my turn?
Sure. Mr. Harrison, I'm going to put you back in the waiting room. It sounds to me like you're going to be called again as a witness by another party. So I apologize for the delay, but we'll get to you as quickly as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Hamper, any other witnesses?
I have two more witnesses, Your Honor. The next one would be Marina Morrow. I believe Mr. O'Quinn took Jax, your son, home with him from the hospital on June 23rd. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I believe that was the date.
All right. And am I correct that Mr. O'Quinn brought your son to your mother's home, Veronica Rodriguez, on or about July 17th of 2023?
Yeah. All right. So when you say he brought Jax to my mother, do you mean like he brought her to, he brought Jax to my mom's house to stay?
Yes, ma'am, more or less.
Yes. It was a little bit after the 4th of July.
All right. Do you know the reason for that?
Yes, it was because he was using.
All right. And I noticed in the records filed with the court, or CPS file, that there was a supervision plan signed on August the 4th of 2023, and then a safety plan signed on August 23rd, 2023. Do you remember your signatures being on one or more of those?
Yes.
Am I
Hold
correct
on.
that
I'm sorry. You keep cutting out, so I'm not hearing everything that you're saying. I'm sorry.
okay? I'll try to speak more slowly.
Okay.
Starting after your son was born, was your mother tasked with supervising you with the child?
Yes, sir.
That was for purposes of feeding and those type of things at the hospital and thereafter?
Yes, sir. There were times when Austin was unavailable. So, yes, she would take me almost every single day, especially when she got off. We would go in the afternoon and at night.
Okay. And while you did you ever have the child at your home?
Was that when I was supervised or unsupervised?
Supervised.
Yes, my mom, we had a little, what's it called? A blow up mattress. So anytime that we stayed at my house, I would sleep on the blow up mattress in Jax's room and she would stay on my bed. And sometimes we would stay at her house. We like to stay at my apartment only because all of Jax's things were there.
All right.
But I was never unsupervised.
And then on or about the 28th of September, 2023 was when the baby was taken from your mother's home, correct?
Yes, sir. I believe so. I wasn't even out of rehab yet. So yes, sir.
Were you aware of the fact that your mother was alleged to have been a drug user?
No, sir.
Okay. Were you aware of the fact that she passed a clean hair follicle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were you at this team meeting that Miss Mears talked about?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was there a phone call for Mr. O'Quinn, or was he present?
He was not present. It was a phone call.
Okay. Did the department call Mr. O'Quinn?
Yes, sir.
Do you have knowledge as to whether or not they knew he was using at the time of the phone call?
Yes, sir. They did.
How do you know that?
Because one of the people that were in the meetings, well, first of all, my mom was texting him asking him if he was going to be there, and one of the ladies that was in the meeting tried to call him multiple times, and then whenever they finally got a hold of him, she said she was upset because they had just told him the day before he needed to be there, and
I'm sorry, ma'am. That's not the question you've been asked, and this hearing
I'm
is
sorry.
running a lot longer than it needs to. So just answer what you're asked.
Okay.
Well, it was apparent that he was using, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And during that phone conversation, it's been stated that your mother was allowing him to see the child in her home. Do you recall that testimony?
No.
Okay. Well, to your knowledge, was Mr. O'Quinn ever allowed to see Jax O'Quinn in Veronica Rodriguez's home?
If he wasn't under the influence.
No, but did he ever get to see, did he ever go to your mother's home after the baby
No.
left the hospital?
No.
Okay. Now, you had the ability due to the plan that was signed to be with your mother and the child, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you know your mother's current husband?
Yes, sir.
Is he a dangerous man?
No. No, sir.
I pass the witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Jackson?
Your Honor, I have no questions.
Mr. Hill?
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Ingram?
No questions.
All right. Mr. Hamper, any other witnesses?
I would call Veronica Rodriguez, Your Honor.
All right.
Veronica, have you been able to hear the comments made by people in this hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Now, were you in the team meeting that I just asked your daughter about with the department?
Yes, sir.
Was her ability to remember the meeting, the events that transpired, correct?
Yes.
Was it your understanding that everyone in the meeting knew Mr. O'Quinn did not attend because he was using drugs?
Yes, I told Elaine that he wasn't coming because he messaged me and told me he was on drugs.
Okay. And during that meeting, did he make the allegation that you allowed him to see his child in your home?
Yes, he did.
Did you ever allow him to see your child in your home?
No, I didn't.
Do you have any idea as to why he would make that allegation?
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation if she doesn't know.
Sustained. I was waiting for somebody to say it. Sustained.
Did Mr. O'Quinn ever tell you why he made that allegation?
Yes, he did.
What did he tell you?
He had told me that his mom had stopped his banking, his money, and that he didn't hand over the baby to her, then he wasn't going to have any more money to live off of. So like she froze his accounts or something like that.
All right.
Your Honor, I'm going to
Now,
object to
did
the
you-
last sidebar as speculation as she made that up. What he said, I have some concerns about.
Overall, I think I understood what she meant. Go ahead, Mr. Hampton.
Now, in the very beginning of this case, your daughter said that you were responsible for supervising her when she go to the hospital with the baby. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And did you basically assume that duty until the time she went into rehab?
Yes, I did.
Am I correct with respect to the notice of filing? I filed some safety plans that both you and your daughter signed with the department, correct?
Yes.
And those were in August.
Yes.
With respect to the allegations, who made the allegations that you were using drugs?
Austin O'Quinn.
Okay. Were you required to take a hair follicle test?
Yes, I did a hair follicle and a urine drug test.
What were the results of those tests?
They were negative.
Okay. Did anyone at the department ever represent to you what they would do if those tests were negative?
Yes, Kelsey, the supervisor, told me that.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay. She's not
Sustained.
here.
Sustained.
If you passed the hair strand test, were you supposed to get the child back?
Again, objection, Your Honor. It's based upon the hearsay statements that she was trying to get in.
Sustained.
It-
No, you can't answer that, ma'am.
Ms. Rodriguez, did anybody at the department ever talk to you about the hair strand test and the urine test?
It was on the safety plan. It says on the safety plan that when it came back negative, we would.
Objection, Your Honor. The safety plan, I don't think is admitted as evidence. It would be hearsay.
Your Honor, we have not been provided with the safety plan, even though we requested it. We were going to provide it to you. Your Honor, I think you're muted.
Judge, you're muted.
That's not what we're here on today. So if that's has to do with discovery.
Ms. Rodriguez, did anybody ever tell you that you were not allowed to provide a photograph to your daughter or Mr. O'Quinn?
No,
Do you believe, how many years have you been married to your husband?
5 years,
How long has he been out of prison?
8 months.
Is he on probation?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Do you believe that he would do anything to have that violate that probation?
No, sir.
Do you think he's a violent man?
No, I don't. Austin O'Quinn's background.
Ma'am, excuse me. You've answered the question.
Did you ever allow either one of the parents to see the child in violation of any of the rules that you were required to follow?
No, I did not.
Are you simply asking for more time to spend with your grandson and for the opportunity to take him in an unsupervised manner to public places for a short period of time, like a park or a zoo or those type of things?
I'm asking for, yes, some grandmother rights, my rights back to my grandson.
In fact, is it true that you've made numerous attempts to be able to work with the other grandmother to go to her house to see the grandson, and you've been told no every time?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled. It's I'll sustain on a hearsay.
I have,
Have you ever requested Misty O'Quinn to let you come and see the child at her house?
yes,
Has she ever allowed you to?
no,
How many times have you done that?
3 or 4 times.
Do you think it's in the best interest of Jax that, under the circumstances, that grandparents should work together for this child?
Yes, I do.
Do you think that would be in the best interest of the child?
Yes, it would be.
Your Honor, I pass the witness.
Mr. Alley,
I don't have any questions at this time, Your Honor.
Mr. Jackson.
Briefly, ma'am, this unsupervised period of possession that you're asking for, just to be clear, you're asking this for yourself, are you not? You're not asking this so that you and your husband can have unsupervised access to the child. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And he wouldn't be a part of that unsupervised possession if it were so allowed.
He wouldn't be allowed, no.
Okay. Is there a condition of his parole that he can't be around young children?
No,
Okay. But you would be willing to make sure that he's not around during this period of unsupervised visitation?
yes, sir. Of course.
Okay. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Hill,
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Ingram.
No questions.
All right. Mr. Hamper, any other witnesses?
No other witnesses, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson, witnesses.
No witnesses, Your Honor.
Mr. Hill,
No, sir.
Ms. Spouts.
Yes, Your Honor, I would call Misty O'Quinn.
Your
Okay.
Honor, if I may, we have 2 status hearings also scheduled today. Those should take a limited amount of time. The Miss Spouts' testimony or evidence that she wants to present may be it may take longer than what we anticipated. With that in mind, can we take a recess on this case, hear my status hearings, and then come back to this case?
Sure. I think that makes sense. We've got a bunch of people in the waiting room. And
Your Honor, if we're going to do that, I want to reserve my right to call additional witnesses. We're going to
Your Honor.
reconvene at another time.
Your Honor, I think that this would take 5 minutes maximum. We just wanted to discuss how the visits were going from Ms. O'Quinn's perspective.
Okay. Let me stop you there. You said 5 minutes. Who else intends to call any further witnesses on this case? Anyone?
I do not, Your Honor.
Anyone else?
No,
Not
sir.
unless it's reset, Your Honor.
All right. Let's go ahead and finish this one up.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
go ahead, Ms. Spouts.
Okay, Misty, how long have supervised visits been occurring?
Since December of 2023.
In the beginning, Mr. Harrison was transporting Jax to and from the visits, correct?
That is correct.
Why did the transportation change?
Due to the way Jax was extremely upset and he was having a hard time calming down.
Can you describe a little bit more about that?
He would come home sweating profusely, crying, hyperventilating. It would get red in the face, constantly crying, and it would take anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour to calm him back down.
Since the transportation has changed, has that improved?
That has improved, yes.
Is there anything else about Jax's demeanor related to the visits that you believe needs to change? let me rephrase. We talked in the last hearing, do you remember we talked about the visits being late in the evening?
Leading the witness, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Do you recall the testimony from the previous hearing?
Yes, I do.
Do you recall hearing testimony about the visits being late in the evening?
Yes. The visits are, in the evenings when the visits are getting too late. Jax, has a schedule. He is ready for bed at 6 o'clock. Well, by the time we get him home, he is tired, overstimulated. And it does take another 30 to 45 minutes to calm him down and get him into bed. It would be easier on him if the visits were not extended any further past that time frame.
If the time frames of the visits extend, but they become earlier in the day, is that still something you're concerned about?
Yes, because it's a disruption of his scheduling.
If you were to have a recommended time frame for the visits to increase, what would you suggest?
Approximately another 30 minutes max.
And why?
Because that's about all he can handle at that point in time. He's 11 months old. And he has a routine and a schedule and naps and feedings, daycare. We all have schedules to follow.
No further questions, Your Honor. I pass the witness.
Mr. Albee?
I don't have any questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes, sir. Ms. O'Quinn, you were talking about Jack's having scheduled on a schedule, has naps and feeding. Have you made Veronica Rodriguez aware of this child's schedule?
Yes.
Okay. And she had testified that she had reached out to try to come by and see Jax, and you denied that request. Is that correct?
I was not given permission.
Okay. You were not given permission to what?
I was not given clarification or permission to, for Veronica to be around Jax unsupervised without CPS present.
Did you explain that to Ms. Rodriguez?
I told her that I would have to contact CPS to get, in order for me to get permission for that to happen, yes.
Okay. Did you get a response back from CPS?
They said that they would check into it.
Okay. Did you let Ms. Rodriguez know that?
I do not recall. Maybe. I'm not quite sure. I would have to look back.
Okay. And so as we sit here today in this hearing, have you ever received a response from CPS with regard to that question you asked?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Ask the witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Hill?
No questions.
Mr. Hanker?
Ms. O'Quinn, did anybody at the department ever advise you that the court, the judge in this case, has authorized for you grandmothers to get together and work together so that you have visits with the child? That you have that authority?
Speculation, Your Honor.
Oh, I don't believe so. I believe I said that I would encourage the grandmothers to try to work together. That's the extent of what I said.
Were you ever told that by anybody at St. Francis or Child Protective Services that was a
Yes.
court's wish?
Well, I was told that we needed to work together. Yes.
Pardon me?
Yes.
All right. So why do you think you need permission from the St. Francis then, if you know that?
I was not told from the judge that I could allow Veronica to see Jax without CPS present.
If the judge were to tell you that, would you do that?
Well, yes.
All right. Also, with respect to the scheduling, would it solve a lot of problems if maybe Ms. Rodriguez could get the child on Saturday for a period of time so that you didn't have to enlarge this weekday visitation, that maybe she could have unsupervised or supervised visits in your home or at some place that you all agreed to?
I'm sorry, you're asking too many questions at once. Could you narrow it down?
You're exactly right. I apologize for that. Would it help if Ms. Rodriguez was able to maybe come to your home on a Saturday to where she could spend some time so as not to have to enlarge the weekday time visitations?
I would say that as long as it's not a set every Saturday schedule, on occasions when I do not have family coming into town, or I'm not going to go see my family, or we do not have like volleyball games and stuff going on, I do not believe that, I just don't believe that I should have to have every Saturday set aside.
All right. Well, to negate that, would it maybe solve that problem if you're doing so many things with your family that maybe she have an hour or two unsupervised visitation on Saturday at some public place?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
Well, so as not to inconvenience your other members of your family and your schedule, do you have any problems with her having an hour or two unsupervised visitation at a public place on a Saturday?
Yes. That takes away from Jack's being with the family.
Okay. Well, you realize he has two families, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Don't you think the other family needs to enjoy him and get to know him as much as your family?
If that is what the courts decide, yes, sir. If not, then no.
Your Honor, I'll pass the witness.
All right. Let's see, Mr. Ingram.
No questions.
All right. Anyone else have further questions for this witness?
No,
All
Your
right,
Honor.
then. Let's see. We were with Ms. Faust. Ms. Faust, that's your only witness?
Yes, Your Honor, I know for the sake of time, I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison's been in the waiting room. I don't think we need him.
Okay, I'll let him go here in just a second. Okay, then, let's see where we're at. I guess, Mr. Ingram, you're the last one. Any witnesses?
No witnesses.
All right, then. Mr. Ingram, recommendations?
I believe it to be in Jackson's best interest that the visitation continue to be supervised. I have no objection to expanding the visits within reason. I have no objection to supervising the visits if that can be arranged.
You broke up there. You broke up there at the last. You have no objection to what about supervised?
If Miss O'Quinn supervises the visits, if that can be arranged. And more importantly, you ordered at the last hearing that the visits be moved up earlier in the day.
I
And
did.
it's my understanding that that still hasn't happened because of conflicts and schedules with the parties. And the parties, in my opinion, need to arrange their schedules and not the other way around.
I fully agree. So, okay, then.
Judge,
All right, based
Judge,
on what?
may I make an argument on behalf of my client?
Very, very briefly, Mr. Hill, I'm way behind.
Okay, just quickly, my client would object to any further unsupervised visits. So in other words, he's okay, but he wants the visits to be supervised.
Okay. All right, then. All right, based on the evidence I've heard, then I'm going to order that the intervener have 2 90-minute period visitations per week supervised. And those 2 90-minute twice weekly visitation periods will end no later than 5:00 p.m. I'm not going to force anyone to supervise those visits. If Ms. O'Quinn chooses to do that and Ms. Rodriguez is in agreement, that's fine, but I'm not going to order that do it. She's placement. Her job is not to supervise visits unless she chooses to do so. So that will be between the 2 grandparents to work that out. So, okay. All right. That will conclude this hearing.
Your Honor, I didn't get the last part of your ruling, the two 90-minute supervised.
2 90-minute periods per week supervised to end no later than 5:00 p.m. If the 2 grandmothers decide that Miss O'Quinn can supervise it, fine. If not, it will continue to be taken care of by St. Francis. Mr. Harrison, sorry, I brought you back in. They're not going to need you again, so you are free to go. Thank you for your testimony.
And Your Honor, just to clarify at the end of this hearing, could I ask the court to kindly admonish both the grandparents that they're encouraged to work together?
I said that last time, and I'll say it again. I would always say that, but I'm not going to order that Miss O'Quinn supervise unless she chooses to do so.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'll take a very brief break for those of you involved. Then Mr. Albie's with us for the department. Casa is with us. Ms. Naranjo is with us representing the child. Ms. Stevens is with us representing Mr. Goldsmith. He was trying to connect. Let me see. He may have dropped off. I'll watch the waiting room for him. And then Ms. Pierce, the mother, is with us. She's representing herself. Ms. Stevens, you may not know the answer to this, but has Mr. Goldsmith seen the service plan and has he signed it?
No, Your Honor. Apparently, he wants to work all of his services and he wants to work with his caseworker. But when I spoke with him this morning, he said that his caseworker, and I'm not saying this is true, I'm just telling you what I was told. He said the caseworker hadn't really told him what to do yet, and they needed to sign some papers. I assume that's the service plan, but he just got a new job and he doesn't want to lose the job by taking off work to sign a service plan or whatever they need. He's willing to sign anything. So I was just wondering if there's any way the caseworker could maybe email it, let him email it back or email it to me and I'll take care of it. Just because I don't think any of us want him to lose his new job. That'll be held against him later.
Yeah, I understand that. Miss Sim, can we do that? Can we just email it? And
Yeah, absolutely. Can I email it to Bethany? I don't think
yeah,
I have.
I think that would be good. That way she can discuss it with him and we'll know that he's had counsel go over it with him. So yeah, that works well.
Okay.
Do you have my
Okay.
email address or do you need it?
I need it. I'm ready when you are.
Can you
Okay, it's
Miss Stevens, you may not, we're live on YouTube. You may want to chat her on that.
I'm on the car, so I can't, but honestly, my email is public. So if you don't mind, Your Honor, I'll just give it to her real quick.
No, ma'am, I don't mind at all.
Okay. It's beism.com. And if you'll send whatever you need, I will get it taken care of for you.
You got it. I'll send it as soon as we get off this hearing.
I appreciate you very much.
Yes,
All right,
ma'am.
Miss Stevens, I'll watch the waiting room, but when you need to go, if your client comes in and you're already gone, I'll explain to him that it's going to be sent to you and then that you'll be discussing it with him. So that should take care of him, I would think.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. I appreciate you being so flexible with me today.
Sure. You just drop off whenever you need to. So Mr. Albee, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would call Miss Peyton Sim. And Rayleigh is approximately how old?
8 months.
And where is Rayleigh currently placed?
She's currently in a PMN foster home in Lubbock.
What does PMM foster home mean?
It's a primary medical needs foster home that they're basically licensed to take care of kids who are medically needy.
And how long has Rayleigh been in that particular home?
For a month and 2 days.
And how is Rayleigh doing today?
She doing very well. She's gained a bunch of weight. She now weighs almost 12 pounds. She's happy there. She goes to daycare in a medical facility, and they do really well with her, and she does well there. She really enjoys being around other kids in the home, and she's laughing and smiling, and she seems to be doing well.
When the child was removed from Miss Pierce, the child was placed in a hospital, and there were some concerns that the child was not eating appropriately. Were those concerns relieved by being placed in the hospital?
Yes.
And has the child been gaining weight sufficiently since the child was removed from Miss Pierce?
Yes.
And does she still have a G-tube? Is she still feeding through a G-tube?
Yes.
Okay. And she's still gaining weight even after she left the hospital?
Yes.
The foster home in Lubbock, is that foster home making sure that Rayleigh attends every one of her doctor's appointments to make sure her medical needs are being taken care of?
Yes.
Child's mother is Miss Erica Pierce.
Yes.
Have you had any contact with Miss Pierce to be able to discuss a potential service plan?
I've tried to make contact to discuss the service plan. One second, I'm going to cough. But contact hasn't been made to discuss the service plan at this time.
I object to that because I messaged you back yesterday and I did not receive a message back.
All right, I can handle that when we're through with the hearing. I'll put Miss Sim and Miss Pierce in a breakout room and then they can discuss whatever they think they need to.
Thank you, Honor. Miss Sim, about how many times have you reached out to Miss Pierce?
I called her April 22nd and received an answer, but there was like no one on the other end of the phone. And so I texted her April 22nd with no answer. I texted her April 23rd with no answer about visits. I texted her April 25th with no answer. I texted her April 30th after I went to her home to visit her. but I don't believe she was home. And then I sent her a text. And then I also texted her, or our PSW texted her May 30th or May 13th.
Thank you. And so you've made efforts to attempt to contact her and make arrangements for visitation and to discuss a possible service plan?
Yes,
I told her twice.
Your Honor, I object to Ms. Pierce continuing to interrupt.
I object to you. I have made contact with that lady several times and told her I'll go any day, any time to see my kid. Just let me know when's good for them. And she has not responded back to me.
Ms. Pierce, you'll have a chance to testify here in just a minute. If you want to make you need to make your objection then so I can rule on it.
It's made, all of it.
Okay, then that will be overruled. Go ahead, Mr. Alvey.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Sim, the facts are that you have not had an opportunity to talk with Ms. Pierce about a service plan.
That's correct.
And have you developed a service plan based upon your understanding and knowledge of the case from the review of the case file?
Yes.
Mr. Alvey, let me interject here for a minute. Ms. Sim, I take it you've not talked to Eric Goldsmith about his either from what I took today. Is that correct?
Correct. I believe I tried meeting with him and he canceled on me, and then our PSW tried meeting with him. And I don't think he was able to show up because his paternity test ran a little long. So.
Okay. Here's what I'm going to do, Mr. Alvey, all the lawyers. I'm going to go ahead and recess this case. That'll give Ms. Stevens a chance to discuss Mr. Goldsmith's service plan with him. And I'm going to put Ms. Sim and Ms. Pierce in a breakout room here, and you two can stay in there as long as you want to discuss the service plan that you've developed for Ms. Pierce. Haley's not with us today, but I'll recess this today. Then Ms. Sim, you will have had time to talk to Ms. Pierce today, and Ms. Stevens will have time to talk to Mr. Goldsmith, and then we'll reconvene to discuss any problems with the service plan. So Haley will be back Monday. We'll email everybody when we'll reconvene this status hearing. So we will stand in recess today. And as I stated, I'm going to put Ms. Pierce and Ms. Sim in a breakout room so they can discuss her service plan and anything else they think they need to discuss.
Judge, can I please go in that breakout room with them as well?
Sure.
That's Ms. Mincy, Your Honor.
Yeah.
And she's supervisor.
Gotcha. Okay, let me get everybody in there. I'll make a note, and we'll email everybody Monday as to when we will reconvene this status hearing. So we'll stand in recess until we reconvene. And I will open the breakout room for the three of y'all. You stay in there as long as you want, discuss everything you need to.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see y'all when we reconvene.